We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is the Doomsday podcast. Ed at field level in the just after doing some post game. Well, I love to be able to see. Oh, there he is on the Zoom. I've made my way across town to the studio. Ed at AT&T Stadium after this one. And Ed, you are just as we tape this, just an hour or so after the game. You've spent time with Jerry Jones. And in fact, I saw it on Twitter. You had a nice little photo. You took a break from recording and put a nice photo up on Twitter. Ed, I would imagine this was a jubilant Jerry Jones, and it continues to be a Jerry Jones who is very impressed / surprised with how this quarterback is performing. But I would say he had to be very pleased after this one.
Yeah, Cooper Rush is the first quarterback in Cowboys franchise history, and they've had two quarterbacks go to the Hall of Fame and two quarterbacks win Super Bowls, and one of the great undrafted quarterbacks in NFL history in Tony Romo, and yet Cooper Rush is the first Cowboys quarterback to win the first four starts of his NFL career, and it's not a common occurrence really among any quarterback group in the entire league. And one of the things that Jerry said after the game was that he wasn't sure that when Dak got injured week one and was looking at a multi-game absence, Jerry, the general manager who put this roster together with the help of Stephen Jones and Will McClay and Mike McCarthy, he wasn't sure that this would happen. He wasn't sure this was going to be the outcome. He had some uncertainty about whether they had put the roster together correctly at the most important position in the game, the quarterback spot. But obviously, those concerns have been dispelled by this. And now, the question is, does Cooper Rush get a chance to get to 5-0 next week when they play the Rams? Or does Dak come back for that game? Or does Dak come back the following week against the first place Eagles? Two big road games coming up for the Cowboys, and games I think that'll really give us a better sense of what they're capable of, this year. As for whether Dak would return this week, Jerry said there's no way of knowing at this point. I asked him the criteria that Dak would have to meet to resume as a starter, and he said he would have to be able to properly grip the football. He would be able to have to control the ball, throw it accurately, and that any pain he's still having would not be able to interfere with his ability to function in those capacities that he mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see if he's cleared to practice this week. I think that's possible. Jerry made it sound like that was kind of the plan. And the other interesting thing, and I think we're going to play the whole thing so people will hear all the details and hear Jerry say it himself. But I asked him if they had seen the X-ray to demonstrate that Dak's thumb has healed properly. And Jerry said because of the surgery that he had, that's not necessary, which I found somewhat surprising.
Yeah, and we always know Jerry has great insight on all these medical things. Ed, I thought about you when I was watching some of the Fox broadcasts today, because you love a good vest over some broken ribs or a sling or whatever, and there were quite a few. Aaron Andrews and the crew had all sorts of close-ups of the thumb, and I know you love to see kind of what an injury, like what padding they're using.
He wasn't wearing anything when I saw him this morning. He didn't throw any pat and go. He hasn't thrown any routes yet, so I think it's a little ambitious to expect that he's going to all of a sudden be able to play against a team as good as the Rams and play to the level the Cowboys are going to need to perform at offensively to win a game like that.
When's the Cowboys bye, Ed? I think the Cowboys are leaning toward just telling Dak, just take the bye. Go through the bye. You'll be fine.
We'll see you at Thanksgiving.
That Thanksgiving Day game will be a fine measure. All right, Ed, lots to discuss. And if you hear some music in the background, Ed is still at the stadium, and he's just gone straight from on camera with ESPN to jumping right into the Doomsday podcast. That's the way we like it out here at Frito Nation Productions in Far North Dallas. Frito, please play the music. Have, of course, stretch plays a little later in the program. And Ed, just to start off, I'm just so pleased that we have Marable Homes with us, and what a great sponsor. And it turns out, Ed, got some feedback this week that a high-ranking member of the Cowboys organization was talking to one of his friends, and he said, hey, what are you hearing about this Marable Homes that's on the Doomsday podcast? And I thought that was kind of neat that the Cowboys, they're noticing things we're doing. And again, one of the things I love about Blake Marable, Amy, his wife, and the Marable family is, Ed, it's like they have a roster, much like the Cowboys, and who's ever handling the plaster or the drywall, all the housing, they're like praying for these people, the electricians. Ed, this is your kind of deal. I mean, it's not just like, well, we don't even know who we're sending out to your house. They're like praying for all these folks, and that's one of the reasons they are having so much success, as well as, of course, being partnered with us. I don't know if that's.
I'm sure they had some doubts after they cut you the sponsorship check. What happens the very first game? Dak Prescott gone for an unknown length of time. So as relieved as Jerry Jones was that Cooper Rush has proven capable of delivering winning football on a weekly basis, I think our good friends at Marable Homes probably felt much the same sense of relief.
That's right. They can keep building homes with these wins. With each win, it accounts for another home. But beautiful luxury homes dotting really all the streets of Lake Highlands and surrounding areas. Okay, Ed, as we continue on here, though, Cowboys get this win 25-10. We opened with talking a little bit about Cooper Rush. His story is amazing, and he just continues to get it done. And there were some really bad-looking drives, especially when they were kind of in their own end zone. And then occasionally, Ed, what he'll do is just rip a throw. It's just like, dang. I mean, this dude, he throws a nice deep ball. I want to specifically talk about one touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. And I made the comment via Twitter, Ed. I mean, I would hope you're hanging on each of my tweets. I kind of doubt that, though. But my thought was...
What's your handle again?
At Matt Mosley. It's Mosley. I thought that was like the point I made is that was an Amari-like route because he sold his body language kind of, I'm going to run it out. And then when he cut that thing inside on that post, I mean, it was like... They didn't have a shot. They didn't have a chance. And then Cooper just fires it. So to me, Ed, this isn't like an offense that's going to blow anybody away, but it's an opportunistic offense. They're going to capitalize when they get in position, especially against a team that obviously doesn't have much going for it, other than a really nice, pretty good run defense. But the Cowboys took full advantage. Ed, the Gallup and CD, I think that was a sight for sore eyes for Cowboys fans to see those two back together again.
Well, I think it's interesting that if you look at the offensive side of the ball and the way they're trending, they've now scored more points each week of the season. And on defense, they've allowed fewer points each week so far this season. And I think you got to feel pretty good about that if you're Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. I did think it was interesting that this was the first game, that they did have both of their projected starting receivers since trading Amari Cooper. And, I did the post-game interview with Michael Gallup, And he said he went through a full range of emotions in making his first appearance on a football field in 8 months since he had the ACL surgery. And, he suffered the injury catching a touchdown pass in the same end zone where in a scramble situation, he caught a touchdown pass from Cooper Rush. And this was his first game he's played with Cooper Rush. Didn't play. He missed the game last year when Cooper Rush started at Minnesota. And then obviously he was unavailable to this point this season. So the Cowboys finally have their full complement of wide receivers, although Noah Brown left the game with some kind of a neck injury. So we'll have to monitor that. But, I think it was pretty remarkable that both of his touchdown passes today, Cooper Rush I'm talking about, came under duress. And he began the day completing 59% of his passes when pressured. And, say what you will about Washington, and you kind of alluded to it, but they do have a good defensive front. Like they have 3 first-round picks in their starting defensive line. But Rush has completed 59% of his passes when pressured. That's the 4th best number in the NFL. And, I mentioned a couple times reporting on the team this week and including this morning that, what they have done from a coaching standpoint is have really created, a good run balance ratio. Mike McCarthy's never been known for that. But the play action passing game has really been critical to the success that they've had with Cooper Rush. Rush, in terms of quarterback rating in play action situations, only Josh Allen has a better quarterback rating than does Cooper Rush. And in terms of getting rid of the ball, his average is 2.46 seconds. Only Tom Brady is faster getting rid of the ball than Cooper Rush. So he's been decisive. He knows what he's seeing. He knows where to go with the ball. And most importantly of all, and he was asked about this today after the game about how he's had this success starting 4-0. And he said, it's the defense, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't put them in bad situations. He doesn't give up sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over, although he turned it over twice today, both interceptions negated by penalties, fortunately for him. But he just doesn't put the defense in a bad situation on a short field, doesn't, give up points on offense. And so they're pretty hard to beat when they play this way. I think the interesting thing will be how much can they replicate this when Dak Prescott is playing, because I talked to Ron Rivera, the Washington head coach, and, Ron Rivera knows great unconventional defenses. He played on maybe the most intimidating defense in NFL history with the 85 Chicago Bears, who won a Super Bowl. And he talked about how, they're so capable of using so many different players to create pressure. And then from an offensive point of view, the thing you said about Dak Prescott versus Cooper Rush is, I've told our guys the ball is coming out right now because he's not an athletic guy. He's not going to generally run around and make plays. And Dak is doing that all the time. So maybe there's a greater emphasis of when Dak does come back of, hey, let's get the ball out on time. Let's not extend plays when we don't have to. Let's just try to make the play that we call and see how that works.
Or could they just say, be more like Cooper?
That might not be well received.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I just looked down, Ed, while you were making some tremendous points there, and noticed that the Cowboys' rushing attack accounted for 2.1 yards per rush. Pollard, 8 rushes for 6 yards, averages 0.8. So they really weren't getting much on the ground, but they were able to generate enough yards through the air and get things done. I also thought it was interesting, Ed, there were some early issues over at left guard. Our friend McGovern returned to the lineup, and number 66 to you. And he, they just weren't getting any movement and all. And Ed, again, I kind of threw a statement out like maybe time for Peters. And I think that was on the 3rd possession. Cowboys put him in. Boom, boom, boom. They go right down the field, and that was that CD Lamb drive. Isn't it interesting, Ed, that CD accounts for most of his yards in these last few games just on like one drive? And again, maybe that's kind of all it takes sometimes. But I bet he had 65 of what he finished with, 97 yards receiving on that one drive.
Yeah, and you mentioned the great post move that he made. The corner in that situation explained after the game he thought he had safety help, but did credit CD with running a great route. I still don't think a lot of people should be concerned about CeeDee Lamb's ability to be a number one receiver. That being said, they're not as good, when they don't have Amari Cooper. And that's just, the fact of the matter. And Jerry made that decision for a lot of reasons. And one of the things, and he sort of took a shot, I thought, at those guys today, reiterating the point that he made at camp about why they let some of those guys go, like Lael Collins and Amari Cooper and Randy Gregory. And, you remember in training camp, he said, well, when you're making a top 10 salary on this team, you have a greater responsibility to be available. And one of the things he was saying after the game today as he assessed Cooper Rush and how they've managed to pull this off without their starting quarterback and really without a starting wide receiver, as we said, with Gallup, without a starting left guard. They didn't have Jason Peters until last week. So, they've lost a considerable amount of talent and been able to still win. And he was basically saying we have a more predictable group of personnel now that we're dealing with on a week-to-week basis. We're not wondering, if somebody's going to be sidelined by an injury or COVID. These guys are going to play hurt if they don't avoid injury. But he was suggesting that was a big part of the equation that they've mastered here.
Ed, and we sometimes post some things to YouTube. I love the walk and talk you just did. I had. There were some other people in the press room who were asking me how long I'm going to be running my mouth because apparently they have work to do too. And I, of all people, I hate it when I'm in a press room and I'm trying to work and other people are just talking. Now, I'm not just talking to talk like they were. Yeah. But I did think that I should probably move out of their domain for a little bit. Okay. So I've relocated to the bar area, which is kind of where Jerry escapes to uses the elevator here to escape us when he's done with us. Yeah. Put something on my tab down there while you're doing that. But you got some kind of car racing in the background. I love that. And also on my end, of course, I have Lakeside Roofing, one of our other just wonderful sponsors, and you can see it when I'm talking to Ed and Marable Homes and Lakeside Roofing. Just two tremendous companies, and we appreciate them so much. Lakeside Roofing is just, and there's storms obviously battering Florida right now, and our prayers go out to Florida. When we have storms hit our area, Lakeside Roofing comes in just a big, big way and has been a tremendous help, and we love having them a part of the Doomsday podcast family. Now, Ed, let's do this right now. Ed was on the ground with Jerry as I was making my way to the studio and was able to visit and spend some time with Jerry. Let's listen to what Jerry Jones, a portion of what Jerry had to say following the game.
Give them a lot of credit. They're a tough bunch to run on. But that was a good win for us.
Why do you think Cooper Rush was so successful again?
Well, I think he knows he's got a lot of confidence in the offense that he knows where the cars are on the freeway. And he's got, to his credit, he in the passing game, he can get the ball there. He gets a good ball to the receivers. They've got confidence in him. He is sitting there with some good, really outstanding protection against a good rush in Washington. So I just can't say enough about how his play has what it possibly has done for this team this season, and to give us a chance to sit here after these last three ball games and maybe have the opportunity we've got for the rest of the year. It's amazing, and it's far more than I could have ever expected.
Dak Prescott, there was a report that said you could be back as early as next week. Do you have any update on that? What are your thoughts on
that? I can't give you anything there medically. I don't think anybody knows how he's going to grip the ball, but certainly we feel a lot better about the way Cooper's playing, the way the team is playing, the way our offensive line has evolved, what we're doing to have pieces of position flex in that offensive line should give you a real good feeling about dealing with what ifs as we go on through this season. And so I know as compared to when we came out of training camp, our personnel is far more solid and predictable than it was when we were coming out of training camp. And it's because these guys have gotten this play time, and because some of the guys aren't out there and others are taking their place.
Is that throwing yet?
I really don't know that I'd call that throwing, what he's doing, but he's certainly got movement, but I wouldn't know if he's throwing at a level that you could say the grip and everything is, again, effectively a good throw, a good normal passing throw.
Knowing what Michael Gallup has been through, how can you put into words the emotions seeing him make his comeback today and score a touchdown in that return?
Well, I know that my heart was with him. Everybody's heart should be with him. That's quite a step mentally to come back from the type of injury that Michael has. That's tough for any of these players to play through injury and get back on a confidence basis your strength or your ability to play the game. He's been patient with himself. Obviously, as a team, we're patient with him. It was good to see him make that contribution out here today.
How much credit during these 3 games do you give Mike McCarthy for how he's coached this team without Dak?
Well, I don't know how you could say enough about how he's handled this team initially starting out. It's like a pitcher, to me, a big boxer, a fighter, and walking out and just getting absolutely hit with the best shot you ever could right on the chin, first step out of it. Now, how do you get that all back together? Well, but give him his due. He has managed to right the ship, steady it, and then progressively get this team in shape to play without Dak. And that's a team-wide thing. I think it would be an injustice not to give him the kind of credit as head coach for getting this thing righted and getting it to this point. And what's happened over the last 3 weeks is with the makeup of our team, and I think our personnel, and I think our potential with the makeup of this team, these 3 games got us back in the hunt.
Defensively, you guys only allow a touchdown each game. I know you thought the defense would be good this year, but did you expect them to be as good as they've been through these first 4 games?
Well, I don't know that I knew or had it involved with stats, but I did think that because if you noticed how many players we kept when we cut the squad back, it was predominantly a little weighted toward the defense. And so we really felt like that we had players, good players, and we felt like that that's the way we ought to weight this thing to give us a chance to win. Again, we didn't expect to lose the quarterback right out of the chute. But we didn't know Cooper Rush could step in and play as good as he's playing either. And so combination of those things are what you find out when you kick it off.
Jerry, how much has Rush, what he's done, allow you guys to be patient, even more patient, and not have the angst of wanting to bring Dak back earlier?
Well, I think that everybody should feel like I feel, and that is that Rush gives us a chance. We certainly know that Dak, as we look to the future, that Dak is an ingredient to our success that's really a must. So we all understand that. But we also know that just as Rush has had to step in here during these 3 games, and maybe more right now, nothing says that can't happen again. And that's what you have with backup quarterback. The first thing that happened when Dak went down that early, literally after the first game, I thought, have we shortchanged ourselves? Have we really got this quarterback thing addressed? And so I'll tell you this: he's answered any apprehension I had about our ability to go out here and compete. and I think compete around the league with anyone with him. But there's no doubt that it should give us confidence, because everybody knows that you can lose your quarterback on the next play.
Jerry, with the way the team has looked the last 3 weeks, how do you explain how the team looked in week 1?
Well, Tampa had a lot to do with it. Tom Brady had a lot to do with it. They've got a good defense, and we're playing better. We're playing better across the board than we played than week 1.
Jerry, when you see...
And so we played better, plus we played a top team, and I think we're seeing, at least so far, that Tampa is a team to reckon with. You've got to really get ready to bring your best. We didn't play that well. Tampa had a lot to do with it, but we didn't play that well. Even though Dak played the whole game, we still didn't. So I can reconcile that in my mind, and I can reconcile that when I look around at the scores and the games that have been played so far, I see good teams running up another good team that had a big day and coming out on the short end. That's the NFL.
Jerry, when you see what Dan Quinn has been able to do as your defensive coordinator these past season started, you thought the process that, you're probably not going to have him as your coordinator next year because somebody's going to hire him to be a head coach?
Well, again, I did something about that. I did something about Dan in the off season. That's why we've got him today. Okay? I did something about that. And so I recognized that he was important in the off season. And so that's, in other words, to answer your question, I don't have to say words. We did something about it. He's here. And he didn't have to be here. And so we're glad to have him here, obviously. And the players are playing because they feel a part of being a part of what he's started. You've got players like Lawrence and players like that. So there's a nice chemistry going on here with his time with the Cowboys.
So, I mean, next year.
Again, that's next year. But I know this, that we've done as good a job of having him here as you can do.
Jerry, I know there's some unpredictability, but what do you think this week looks like as far as Dak, and what does he have to do in your mind to get back out on the field?
I don't know. I really don't. I know that he does need to be able to grip and control and throw the ball. And he does need to do that so that the pain won't keep him from doing it. And so I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I do know that he's making great progress. He's certainly everything that I can see that we hoped when we didn't put him on IR. I'm glad we didn't have him on IR. He's getting practice this week. He's going to evolve more and more, and so that's good. It also feels good to know that Rush is playing at this level.
Is there any thought of giving him an extra week, even if he is ready, just because of how valuable that Philadelphia game is?
There's no thoughts about that, because it's first of all, we've got to see generally if in fact that he's in a position to play a ball game. And we've got to get ready to play, of course, beginning here the first of the week. So we'll see how that goes. I don't have no way, by talking to a doctor or even by talking with Dak, I have no way to assess whether or not he's going to be able to play this week.
Have you seen the X-ray yet to demonstrate how much the bone is healed?
I haven't, but because of the nature of the way they repaired it, you don't have to have healed bone, because that's the deal. It was
because they put a plate.
They put a plate in there, and because of where this is located, you don't have to have full healing.
So is Dan Quinn the highest paid coordinator in the league?
I don't know, but he got a raise.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
There was Jerry, and a lot of interesting things. And again, as you hear some feedback that you normally don't hear, Ed is at the ball game, and so some people are having conversations behind him. Ed, you do not be bothered by that. You're like You've dealt with a lot of things over the years, so you just keep fighting through. I just wanted to kind of let our people know what was going on. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. They just wonder, why does Mosley...
I'm trying to still find a better location where we won't be disturbed.
Frito and I just kind of love watching you just walk around. It's kind of a fun part of the podcast.
The blowers out here in the stadium, in the bowl of the stadium.
Frito's telling you, our sound expert is saying, go away from where you are right now. Oh, this is good.
How about now? Am I okay here?
How about yes? Yeah, we're getting the okay side. Is Ed and I come to you taping this moments after the Cowboys' 25-10 win. Now, Ed, I did want to say another dominant defensive performance. I mean, there were moments when it looked like, especially by halftime, actually Washington had run the ball quite effectively, and they were able to kind of hang in there, throughout some of the game. Cowboys finally kind of pulled away in the fourth quarter, but. And I think Micah had a funny quote going with, okay, we allowed 19, we allowed whatever it was, 16. Next week we're only going to allow maybe 7. To allow an NFL team allowing 10 points, even if it's against the Commanders, is pretty impressive. And I thought we usually start with Micah Parsons. I thought I should mention that Donovan Wilson just had an unbelievable game at safety. And as they were talking about on the TV broadcast today, Ed, we've noticed this for a couple of years now. He's one of the most violent tacklers on the team, and he brings so much impact. And I just thought, obviously Trayvon Diggs had a great game, but I just thought Wilson really had a tremendous impact on this game.
And he's playing for Jaron Kearse, who's a unique player in Dan Quinn's offense. And it was close as to whether he was going to be available to play today. And some people are speculating that maybe when Kearse does come back, he won't automatically return as a starter either. But I think because of a relationship between him and Dan Quinn and the fact that he's so uniquely versatile in covering, the tight ends and led the Cowboys in tackles last year, that as well as Donovan Wilson has played and Malik Hooker's played, in the secondary, that I see Kearse as being a unique enough player that Dan Quinn's going to work him back in, pretty quickly. But yeah, Donovan Wilson's a guy, that Jason Garrett's staff always loved. I mean, they seemingly made a financial commitment to him long before the rest of us thought he had deserved any such thing. But again, the depth on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is really remarkable. And Jerry made the point today after the game that, you remember we knew we were going to be a great defensive team, he said, because that's why we kept 28 defensive players when we cut to 53. Don't forget, when they cut to 53, they cut Cooper Rush. They let Cooper Rush go out. He could have been signed by anybody. Now they had a deal with him to come back. They wanted him back, and he understood all that, and he was unlikely to leave. But somebody else could have signed him at that point because the Cowboys had so many defensive players they wanted to keep. And, you're seeing the results of that. I mean, they have, I think, 17 sacks now in four games, which probably still leads the NFL. There's teams playing now, but 17 sacks and 8 different players have a sack. 2 guys who didn't have a sack today, before today, had them today. And, I talked to Ron Rivera, as I mentioned in the thing, Carson Wentz sacked the career high 9 times last week by the Eagles. They'd gone to Wentz and said, look, you got to get rid of the ball. Like, when that clock goes off in your head, you got to honor that. And either if it's there, throw it. And if it's not, throw it away. And that's what he did. He threw 42 times today for 170 yards. They didn't care. They just didn't want to take sacks, and they didn't want him to turn the ball over, which eventually, of course, he did. Yeah. When the game kind of got out of hand and tilted in the defense's favor. But, man, this Dan Quinn defense is unbelievable in its ability to create pressure on quarterbacks. You watch the third down defense. There's not even a down lineman. They're all standing up at the line of scrimmage. It's Barr and it's Micah Parsons and, it's D-Law and they're all coming. And they might blitz a guy too. but what their ability to consistently create pressure is astounding. And I think they have 65 pressures in 4 games. That's the highest total since ESPN began tracking that statistic in 2009. And the Steelers have surpassed it twice. They're the only team other than the Cowboys to reach that level.
Right.
And we all know the Steelers are defined by their pass rush.
Yeah, that has been the case over the years. And as we continue on the Doomsday podcast, Ed, to your point about Wentz and about the fact that maybe somebody could have claimed Cooper Rush, of course, none of us at that time thought, oh, my gosh, I mean, this is scary. Somebody's going to go after Cooper Rush. We sort of joked, that won't happen. We knew it. And now, Ed, I don't think even the most optimistic Washington fan, if you said you could just swap straight up Wentz for Cooper Rush, they would all do it. They would say, yes, where do I sign that deal? And I thought to myself today, they on the broadcast, Fox has the new number 1 team, and of course that could include Tom Brady at some point. I mean, just to hear them talk about this guy's making himself all sorts of money. Even just a couple of weeks ago, I would have laughed at that. And now it sort of makes sense that Cooper Rush, if he keeps playing like this. Now, what I kind of have been joking, I smiled when I heard it, because what he kind of needs to happen is Dak to get back pretty quickly. You want to get out and have set some record for the first 5 starts that he goes 5-0, and then you want Dak to come back, because then all they'll remember is that he won all these games, right? You don't want to go play the Eagles and throw 4 interceptions.
Who thought we would ever be measuring Dak by the standards established by his backup Cooper Rush? But it was kind of interesting. And that's not going to happen. Jerry, even, last week, 2 weeks ago, created a controversy by saying that, hey, you'd like it to be a hard decision when Dak's ready. And that's not going to happen. And you know what? Nobody has to put pressure on Dak Prescott to play. Dak Prescott wants to play. Dak Prescott's going to want to play as soon as it's physically possible for him to play at a level where he's sure he's not going to be hurting his team. So I have no doubt that Dak Prescott's going to play sometime in the next 2 weeks. And I asked Cooper Rush today, I said, how hard is that going to be after all you've done? You've started all these games and all you've done is have success, to go back to not playing. And he said, yeah, it's been great. This is what you dream about when you're a kid, is playing, be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. But, I know my role and I embrace that. And I know why we've won. It's been the defense, as I said. And so that's how he's engendered, all of the respect from his teammates in the locker room. And unlike, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott has infiltrated every portion of this franchise. Like, everybody at every position sees Dak Prescott as the leader of this football team. And that hasn't always been the case. It wasn't when he took over from Tony Romo. As Barry Church said this week, a lot of us saw Romo as an extension of the coaching staff. We didn't really see him, as our quarterback, as our leader among the players. We knew he had a few close relationships, but we did not see him in the way that we do Dak Prescott, leader of the entire team, because of his relationship with everybody on the roster regardless of position.
Boy, I find that last part is really interesting, and because we both watched that Romo thing from up close, and it is funny because the duo of Romo and Witten were so close, and it kind of helped lead Witten to an opportunity to be on Monday Night Football that unfortunately didn't last that long. But it's a very interesting point. Ed, if I were you, I would have asked Cooper Rush, hey, what did you think of the Commanders receivers? Does that look like a group you could be working with next year? Just gotta get us.
Look, I don't think that people are going to look at Cooper Rush after this and project him as a starting quarterback for a winning franchise. I just don't think athletically, he has the arm talent to impress people, the mobility to impress people, and he would probably acknowledge that probably wouldn't eliminate the possibility that there's a team or two that he could start for. I don't think there's a dozen teams that he could start for, but I think he does a great job of making up for what he lacks physically by understanding so well what he's being asked to do and how to play the game and when to make the right decision. He makes up for his lack of athletic ability with pure execution. I like the boy. Did you hear that, Frito? The way Ed just punctuated that point, just pure execution. I look at some of the quarterback play and the fact that one quarterback was given the hook today in Trubisky, and I feel like if he can just go 2 more games like this, I think who knows what the Cowboys could get for him or what they could. I don't know. If I were the Cowboys right now, Ed, given what Dak's had injury wise, I'd be thinking about an extension. I would
Cooper Rush.
Yes.
Well, Jerry made the point, and people may have heard that part of the interview where he actually says, "Well, this could happen again. Like when Dak comes back, it doesn't mean he's going to start the rest of the season because he could get hurt again." I mean, one of the remarkable things I think is that, and Mike McCarthy, as Jerry said, like he deserves. It's disrespectful not to give him credit for what he and his staff have achieved in what seemed like a huge crisis after week 1. Nobody thought when they lost like they did and played as badly as they did on offense that they were going to lose Dak Prescott and go win 3 straight games. Nobody thought that was going to happen. It was preposterous to think that was even a possibility. Yeah. But now it has. Jerry's right because, Mike McCarthy, I think this was his 37th game as the Cowboys head coach. Jason Garrett, from the time they drafted Dak Prescott in the 4th round in 2016, Jason Garrett never had to coach a game where Dak Prescott was not available. Mike McCarthy's had to do that every season. And in 2 of the seasons, it's been an absence covering multiple games. And today with Cooper Rush now reaching 4-0, Mike McCarthy is 8-7 in Dallas without his starting quarterback.
That is remarkable. And we've seen how angry Jerry has been in the past. Like when Romo was out, Brad Johnson came in and he was looking at Garrett like, "What have you done to me? You told me this guy could do the job." And even Jerry admits, like you said, that he didn't think Cooper Rush could do what he's doing right now. And I really wish you had also asked Jerry about some of this pottery, the ancient Japanese pottery that McCarthy. I mean, I got a kick out of that. McCarthy and all his buffalo and sacred grounds and running into the storm. I mean, McCarthy is a master motivator. And of course, you look like more of a master motivator when your team is 3-1. And then all those things before the season look brilliant now.
He better master motivate him through the playoffs is what he better do, regardless of what they do in this regular season. And no matter how much credit he deserves and gets for, keeping them viable and winning, winning every game they played without Dak Prescott. The only game they've lost is the one Prescott started. Now they were against Tom Brady, but still the point stands. And he's got to win in the playoffs. Whatever crisis he, averts here and, winning the division, none of that's going to be enough. He's got to win in the postseason.
Yeah, but again, we're kind of shocked that here we are based on what it felt like after that first game to be 3-1. I mean, Rams will be tough, but it's not like, oh, there's no chance. There's certainly a chance, and then that could set up what could be an early season divisional battle with the Eagles. That's going to be fun, and the way Hurts has played and the way the Eagles have gotten off to a start. So we never would have thought that the Eagles would have taken off like this and that the Cowboys would somehow, after that first week disaster with everything going wrong, would have kept pace or kept right behind them. So it is pretty amazing. Okay, Ed, it is time to let our man who does the grading. Oh, my gosh, Ed, and he needed some time after today's game to check everything and look at some film. All right, it is Stretch Plays with Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach. You always look forward to this. And Stretch is preparing to do some TV this evening on WFAA Channel 8, the ABC affiliate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But he always does Doomsday first. And Stretch, the 25-10, this team has now 3-1 and has held all of its opponents in each game to 19 or fewer points. So pretty impressive. And I don't care how bad the Commanders are, to hold a team to 10 points is pretty dang good in this NFL. Just from an overall standpoint, what did you think of this defensive performance?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this, week in and week out, and it's really, the job that the defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, is doing and putting what I feel like are the pieces of this defense into place, and then they're interchangeable. I mean, you see guys moving up and down the defensive line. You see guys and you go, who is that? I mean, there's names mentioned that I don't think if you're not studying it all the time, you're like, well, who is that that's making that play? Who is Duran? I mean, who is Bland? Who is that? I mean, and I'm sure, okay, if you follow it, he was a 5th-round draft pick at Fresno, bye-bye. But the point is I think that when you look at the job that the coordinator is doing, when you see how he has all of these interchangeable pieces, he's able to move guys around. He's able to put them in position to get the matchups that he looks for. And then these guys are making plays. And you can tell this is a defense that is bought in to what they're doing. I mean, I know I used to sit and I would be looking at defenses in the past, and you would grade guys because it felt like they were loafing at times. You felt like guys were taking plays off. You felt like guys weren't finishing plays. I mean, weren't really going and chasing at the correct angle, retracing their steps. And I mean, you don't see any of that with this defense. And I think you have to start with the coordinator and an amazing job he's doing. They're obviously very well coached on that side of the ball. And I think it shows, and it's starting to show every week, and it's starting to show across the league what the team can do. I mean, the secondary, you see guys making plays. I mean, I see a different Anthony Brown. I mean, I see a player that's playing with some confidence, and he's not any different physically. He's not any different, other than he understands the scheme and he knows what to do. And so the secondary, you got corners that are playing with more confidence, that are not afraid to say, hey, if I'm going to sit right here and jump this route, I know I got help over the top with my safety. And you saw that today. And then you got 2 safeties who not only can cover, but they will come and hammer you.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about they will tackle, and they will tackle with force, and they get guys on the ground, and they, all the scouting jargon, they arrive with bad intentions and all those things that you hear. But to me, the secondary really has not been talked about a lot, and it's because of a great pass rush you get, but you're getting great secondary play. And so that's where I'm going to start with the secondary, who in my mind, I mean, it is a B+ all the way, and gave you a great winning effort.
All right. He's back to being a tough grader because that was a tremendous effort. So, but B+ is a very high mark coming from Glenn Stretch Smith. Now, Stretch, Diggs, to your point, tracking the ball, made the great interception, was knocking balls away. He does it with such ease and comfort, as somebody described it, that it's pretty remarkable to watch. It's uncommon is about the best way I can put it. Now, let's jump up front. Gallimore makes a big play behind the line of scrimmage early. Bohanna's playing well up front. And then, Stretch, the ability for Micah Parsons. At one point, he lines up on McLaurin, who's supposed to be, a great wide receiver in this league. And not only did Parsons cover him, but he covered him pretty well. Like he was not even there to really make the play. I mean, that even to you, who's kind of seen everything in this league, how rare is it to have a guy like Parsons who can line up and basically cover just about anybody?
Yeah, he can cover anybody. He can run with anybody. He can He can rush from obviously an edge rusher. He can go inside and rush. I tell you, one of the best things I saw Tristan Hill drop into coverage and actually look up the slant, and they got the sack. I mean, that's what I'm saying. When you get guys buying into a defensive scheme, yes, Micah Parsons, we talk about him week in and week out, and he is a phenomenal football player, and obviously coming off of a Monday night football game where he had been getting IVs and was not feeling well. It was good to see, like you said, all of these other guys come in and play. I mean, Gallimore, Diggy Zoo. I mean, you got guys up the hill, got guys up and down the roster who are contributing. And to me, that's the direction that when you look down the road, when you think about, okay, how are the Cowboys going to challenge, the Eagles right now for the NFC East to gain back? You think they're going to have to do it and continue to do it defensively. And when you see the depth that they have, just because one guy gets a little dinged or Parsons came out for a play, you don't hold your breath like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to play with the same reckless abandon. And so, I mean, the defensive line is the key to this, and we know that the pressure they're getting. I mean, you got to give that group an A, and the linebackers, to me, are continuing to do what you want them to do with Barr, Vander Esch. They're continuing to be solid players, and I give that group a B. And so overall, when you look at the job that the defense is doing, I think everybody wants to talk about Cooper Rush, and I get it. That's a great feel-good situation. But right now, I mean, this defense is flying around. You don't see them. When was the last time we came on here and talked about the defense making mental errors? I mean, I can remember when we were 2 years ago, we'd come on here, and you needed an abacus to count the mental errors that this team was having. And you don't see that right now. And so to me, that's the term that I keep using is these guys are buying in and they understand the scheme, and Dan Quinn is moving them around and putting them in the best matchups, and they're taking advantage of those matchups.
Yeah, and on the offensive side, Stretch, after the game, Cooper Rush was quoted saying, hey, it's plain and simple. The defense is winning the games for us. And, of course, he's being somewhat modest, but I think he recognizes, and I think we're also seeing last year was sort of stunning the amount of takeaways and the big plays this defense made, but there were still kind of some leakages and some things that were going wrong at times. And this is maybe the second year in this Dan Quinn defense, and I think we'll look back on this Stretch and think the ability to keep Dan Quinn, whether it was Jerry writing a bigger check, whether it was some of those other teams deciding they were going to hire other people, whatever it came down to, your ability to retain Dan Quinn for a second season ended up being a great thing for this organization. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, let's start with quarterback. Cooper Rush, another, I think to use one of your old terms, kind of a workman-like effort. The thing I like about him is that, I mean, that deep ball, he'll throw a really pretty deep ball, and then when he needs to, that one drive where CeeDee Lamb just boom, 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 right down the field for like 65 yards on that one drive, and on that post, Stretch, I kind of want to get your take on that because, boy, that looked almost kind of Amari Cooper-like, selling kind of that outside fake, and then how you don't see a receiver on a post pattern like that generally get that wide open. How impressed were you with CD and Cooper on that drive and throughout the game?
Well, I mean, they kept talking about, or Greg Olsen did on the broadcast, about it was a double move. It's not a double move. The key in what made the play work was the fact that you had Schultz line up as a true tight end. They were playing quarters coverage, so 4 across the top. And when you don't bang the tight end, and you let the tight end free release into the seam, he's on the safety right now. And what you saw CD do was a really good job of widening the window for Cooper Rush. He just widened the window a little bit with his route and this way he stemmed his route and then back into the skinny post. The key to the play, and the reason the play worked, was because you allowed and got Schultz into that seam so fast that it had to hold the safety on the hash. Therefore, there was room for him to throw the ball, and there was well-designed play by Kellen Moore. Again, I was as hard on Kellen Moore week one. We suspended them all, threw them out of school, and you have to give him credit for the design and how they went about designing that play. Here's the other thing. I mean, they used Farniok as a fullback multiple times in the game and then ran the big play action with him to the post for the 40-yard gain. So to me, it's about giving credit where it's due. Obviously, I'm going to give Kellen Moore a lot of credit there, and I'm going to give him the ability to say, you know what, he was able to put his players in position to be successful the same way that Dan Quinn was able to put his guys in to be successful. So, you know, getting that formation down in that red zone and then getting the coverage you were looking for, set up an unbelievable play right there and a good throw and a good catch. I also like that they continue to kind of boot rush out to his right. You can tell, Matt, he kind of likes to throw the ball down there in the red zone when he's booting out to the right. You saw Gallup run that baseline come across there when he knew his quarterback was moving. He ran across there. Rush makes a great throw. So, you know, he threw two balls that were interceptions. That they were called back because of penalties. You know, that concerns me a little bit. You almost had an interception down there in the red zone where the ball got batted. But if you look at it in the whole, to me, in a 3-game set, which is what he's played, he's done a pretty decent job of taking care of the football, throwing it away when it's not there. Don't be afraid to live to fight another day. And what I like about him going in and talking about his defense, getting their offense off the field is he recognizes, hey, it's okay if we punt the football right here because I know I'm going to live to fight another day. And to me, that there's something to be said for a guy that's not pressing and having to press the ball down the field. Yeah, it sounds like about a solid B for Cooper Rush. You know, the running game wasn't really there. The Commanders pretty much took that away, but sometimes those little short passes or screens can be an extension of the running game, as we've talked about before. And that looked pretty good, didn't it? Stretch Zeke getting out in the open field and kind of looking like the old Zeke. I mean, that had to be kind of refreshing to Cowboys fans. Again, while not a great rushing game for either back, to see Zeke get out in space and have about a 30-yard catch and run, I thought that was a nice moment for the offense. Yeah. You mentioned it right there, and I appreciate you giving me the grade. You're a hell of a teacher's assistant, Mosley, and I'm assuming you did a lot of that when you were over there at Baylor. But yes, in fact, don't interrupt me. I can see you leaning into the mic. If you interrupt me, you're going to be talking to yourself. I can tell you right now that when you look at how they're running the football, there's times when you think, golly, they get knocked back. They get a couple of 2-yard losses here and there. But what I like is they're not getting away from it. And when you don't get away from it, again, you're living to fight another day. And I think that's what Kellen Moore's doing. He's saying, hey, we got to get in a different formation. We don't need to be in 3 tight ends to run the football. We can spread them out a little bit and still continue to run the ball. We can run. I mean, what I like when you see it is they're not afraid to run Noah Brown in and let him block on the backside. They're not afraid to let CD. I mean, these receivers, they got to come in and block too. And so, we talked about this many times. I mean, NFL defenses can make you stop running the football. They can shut you down. I don't care how good you are. And when they do that, you make them pay for it. And you saw that with what we just talked about, which was the post and the ability to make them pay through the pass game, through the play action game. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm concerned about the Cowboys running game right now, because going in, you're going to stop the run and you're going to try to put the game as a defensive coordinator. You're going to try to put the game on Cooper Rush, and he's been able to function and win those games. So I'm not that concerned about the running game. I do like I like Peters. I mean, inside at guard, he's a big body. I mean, I do like what the offensive line is doing. We're not seeing those holding penalties. You know what I'm saying? And I think you got to give them credit for that. And quite frankly, you got to give the line credit for doing a pretty decent job of protecting. So I'm going across the board with the offense, and really I'm going to give them all a B and a really good job of continuing just to do what you need to do to win football games. And I think that's exactly what you've seen Kellen Moore and how he's designed a game plan to do.
I like it, and I think they've got to learn from this. And Stretch, by the way, I don't know if I've given you an opportunity to welcome on our new sponsors of the Doomsday podcast, Marable Homes and Lakeside Roofing. Marable Homes, home builder, building timeless classic homes, the Dallas area. Great team equipped to handle luxury, residential, new construction, passionate about what they do, and honestly, that's why they become great friends with their clients. And so I know where you live out in the Alito area, Stretch, you see some big homes go in out there, and boy, Marable Homes continues to get that done. And then, of course, Lakeside Roofing, the highest quality roofing products paired with high quality workmanship. Stretch, would you welcome those sponsors to the Doomsday podcast, please?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly will. And anytime we have new folks join the team, it's obviously great to have them be a part of what we're doing, and something that I'm sure Frito will come up with some real original ideas and some things to make sure that they are welcomed into being a part of the Doomsday family.
He's taking notes as we speak, coming up with all sorts of ideas. Now, you've watched the Eagles. You know what the Cowboys are going to face next week in the Rams as they begin this stretch. This 2-game stretch is going to be really interesting. Such a great opportunity. I think one of the luxuries right now, speaking of luxury homes, Stretch, is that you don't have to feel like you're rushing Dak. I mean, think about that year they got off to a bad start and they had to go trade a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. Think about where we were just 3 weeks ago. Oh, my gosh, the season's over. They've got no chance. How nice is it that they can kind of take their time and hopefully get Dak back? How do you kind of see this team right now moving forward? Obviously the Eagles look to be the better team in the NFC East. How far off that pace do you see the Cowboys right now?
I mean, I think the Eagles have done what they needed to do, which was win games that, quite frankly, at the beginning of the year, we thought they were going to win. Now, you get into the meat of your schedule, and the Cowboys are going to have to go out to SoFi, and they're going to have to play a really good Rams team. And I think, the key is you come out of that thing, feeling you're pretty good about where you're at in the division, and win or lose out there. I mean, you're in the division race, and I think that right now you got to think that where the Cowboys are is going to give them a chance all year, and the key is going to be what they do defensively with Dak, without Dak. I don't think it matters. I think they're going to have a defense that can get after you, that can get after the quarterback, and any time you can do that, that leads to turnovers, it leads to short fields, and it leads to the ability for you to win football games.
Stretch, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to put any pressure on you, but an enormous Facebook Live audience started to gather as Frito put it out there that we were doing this. And so hello to everybody. Appreciate you joining us. And, of course, you'll enjoy Stretch Plays. Stretch, continued success as you get ready to do some TV tonight, live television. Thank you for being such an integral part of the Doomsday podcast.
Appreciate it, buddy. See you later. I'm glad we got some new help in here with the Marable Homes. And who's our roofing company, Mosley? Who's the official roofer of Doomsday?
Lakeside Roofing.
There we go. All right, buddy. See you, man.
There he goes. Glenn Stretch Smith off into the night on a Sunday night getting ready to do some TV. All right, it is that was Stretch Plays, and Ed Werder, as we Ed's been hard at it today as always, and Cowboys get ready to go on the road against the defending world champs, the Eagles game looming. Ed, final thoughts as we kind of look back, a nice 25-10. First of all, how weird was that for you to look down there and see those the Commanders, and to think about this great rivalry over the years and like what the Cowboys and the team formerly known as the R Word, what that's been like, and then to see completely different kind of uniforms. Was that pretty strange to your eye from the press box to see those all black uniforms that the Commanders were wearing?
Well, there's not a lot of tradition given what, the Commanders, Dan Snyder, who, oh, by the way, Dan Snyder was back apparently from his suspension, expulsion as a day-to-day operator of the Washington franchise after all of the sexual harassment allegations. Roger Goodell, after the investigation, banished him. He wasn't allowed. And this was the first time, not sure, I don't think it was the first time he's at a game, but it was the first time he's on the field pregame. And there he was with, Jerry and Steven and engaged with them. But yeah, I mean, how much tradition is there when the franchise in its current form has only existed for a short period of time? And we all know every team in the NFL now has, 10 different uniforms they wear during the course of a different season. So it wasn't that shocking. And underneath it all, they still look like the same last place team in the NFC East. The same feckless, hapless team, and feckless. Very good. The embarrassment that is the whole Tua situation for the league. They just kind of snuck Dan back in. Dan, you can just go. You're off the suspension. We got this Tua thing. Nobody will notice. You go down there and hang out in Dallas. It did cross my mind today, Ed. I was kind of chuckling to myself, thinking about Tom Brady. I bet he's so excited and ready to be calling a noon Fox Commanders game. I bet that's just, and again, for what they're paying him, he'll do it, and I think he'll enjoy it. But I just was kind of thinking, golly, we could be, that this time next year, Tom Brady could be doing this very game. And so it's kind of interesting to think about those things. Ed, as we project forward, look at another dominant defensive performance, and on the injury front, the last we've seen as we tape this, the word coming that Bohanna, who's played really, really well. I thought Gallimore played well today. Yeah, defensive tackle. Bohanna, the defensive tackle, has a shoulder sprain, and they don't think it's going to be that serious, so it doesn't look like sort of a long-term deal. But so that's great news for the Cowboys because, again, he's played well. Very well. He's looked good at defensive line, and Ed is Ed's been. I love watching Ed move around during this. Ed, anything as the Cowboys get ready to go on this stretch, they got to have a lot of confidence. They have tremendous confidence in the defense. 2 takeaways. Deron Bland. I mean, my gosh, the guy, rookie. 5th round rookie, and that was a beautiful close on the ball. As he picked off Wentz late in the game to kind of finalize things, what is your kind of outlook as the Cowboys? And would you take a split if you think Jerry Jones right now, if they offered him? I know you don't care about if they win or not, but if Jerry Jones were offered a split right now between this Rams and Eagles game, you think he would take it? I think he would take it, especially if he got to win the game that Dak started, and that game was at Philadelphia. Okay. Because they won every division game last year, the only team in the league that won every division game last year, and they're 2-0 in the division now. So if they could beat Philadelphia, that'd put them in a great position to go do that again and repeat as division champions, which hasn't happened in the NFC East in the last 17 years. Okay. So that would be quite an accomplishment. I guess the thing. My final takeaway is Jerry Jones was really smart in doing whatever it took to make sure Dan Quinn came back for year 2 as a defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn is the most important person in the organization besides Jerry. And after the game, Jerry was talking about, somebody said, what are you going to do when, Dan Quinn leaves after this year? And Jerry was like, I've already done it. I've already done some things to, put us in a position. And he wouldn't be specific about it. He didn't say, hey, I've already told McCarthy, if I have to lose Dan Quinn or you, I'm going to lose you. but he said, I didn't just think about it. I didn't just say it. Like, I paid it. And somebody said, well, what exactly did you do? And he said, I gave him a nice big raise.
Now, if I were making that statement, I would say he's the most important person in the organization. Other than
non-player.
Oh, okay. Well, you were just let me. You were. I had a joke ready, and yeah.
Go ahead. Say it.
No, it was going to be Jerry and Cooper Rush, but then you had to you had to qualify it with a non-player. By the way, I'm glad you don't do this on ESPN. I've been watching you throughout our Zoom deal, and you've put a finger in front of yourself.
Put a finger in front of myself?
Yeah, you had a hand up. There you are. There's that finger. You may give me the finger here in a minute. Ed, that was fun work. That was good. And we again, Marable Homes, thank you so much. Becoming recognized all over the Metroplex, luxury homes, incredible to the people that work with them. They've been great to work with. Lakeside Roofing. They just do incredible work, and so they kind of work in concert together, and we have loved being affiliated with them. We're also, Ed, always enjoy being affiliated with Frito Nation Productions. Mark Frito Friedman, he races around the Metroplex just to be in position to do this, and we appreciate him so much. So, Ed, appreciate your hard work. And cannot wait to visit with you after next week's game, which will be the afternoon. It'll be about a 3:25 kickoff against the Rams. For Ed Werder, Mark Frito Friedman, and Marable Homes, I'm Matt Mosley. Good night from far north Dallas on the Doomsday Podcast.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.